So for those of you who watched last week, you know that I had one goal and only one goal last week, and that was to launch a test flight and begin beta testing. Well, long story short, I failed at that. I didn't get it done. And I want to bring this up and I want to discuss it because one of the major reasons I even started Project Unicorn and wanted to record myself throughout this process was to be authentic, was to be real. And that includes failure. Failure is a part of the process. This was the first time, as a matter of fact, over the 20 or so weeks so far, that I haven't been able to accomplish the goals that I set out for myself. Disappointing, no doubt. Obviously, you can't avoid some of that frustration, but I want to talk today and just be fully transparent about not necessarily excuses around it, but really how to deal with that, or how I deal with that. I think the biggest thing, if I had to boil it down, is the best way to deal with failure, or at least stumbling, is realizing that it's temporary. All of these kind of delays are temporary unless you allow them to become permanent. This isn't just hyping you up. It's not just a pep talk. It's not even me kind of reassuring myself that it's going to be okay. It really is that, because this is not a sprint. It really is a marathon. It's a long-term process. There's going to be a lot of checkpoints along the way. This, setting things up for test flight and getting to testing is one checkpoint along the way. But if that's all I was working towards, what would be the point of all this? And so a good thing to keep in mind is there are other checkpoints coming up. Use this as a learning experience and make yourself better for the next one. Make sure it doesn't happen again, or even if it does happen again, fail better. Get closer to your goal the next time. You can't get discouraged at this kind of stuff. It's very tough. I'm a person who gets frustrated when things don't go exactly my way. Anybody who's been around me long enough knows that I hate losing. And I don't necessarily characterize this as losing, but I don't like the idea of not accomplishing my goals on the timeline that I set up for myself. And so, especially for, if you are like me and you're really determined and I won't even call it anxious, but dead set on your goals, you have to keep in mind that frustration and disappointment are only going to slow you down. If you're dead set on your goals, you're dead set on them regardless of the timeline. And so you have to think in the big picture. What is the mindset that's going to allow me to progress past this? What's the mindset that's going to allow me to do better next time? And so for me, that's certain thing I'll talk about now, kind of my own experience with this. A big reason that I wasn't able to get it out this week was there were a lot of UI bugs and even logic bugs that I hadn't worked out. I hadn't tested enough internally. And that shows me that I need to spend a lot more time testing myself, testing the app myself, before I even get to a point where I'm saying that I'm ready to get it out and have other people test it. And so it's a learning process. If I don't take that to heart, I'm going to run into the same problem next time. And so I'm well aware of that now. Will not let that happen again. I'm the type of person that if I fuck up, and this is a fuck up, I'm going to make sure that next time I'm going to do better. I want to encourage anybody who has a failure or a stumbling, in the process of building a product or an app or anything that we're talking about, anything creative, anything that involves, many steps over a period of time, stick with it. Identify exactly what you did wrong and why you did that wrong. Don't beat yourself up, because if you turn it into if I turn it into, man, I suck, or can't believe I didn't get this out on time, or is this ever going to work, or any of that negative talk, then it becomes bigger than just that individual issue. Then I have to deal with, am I good enough? And it has nothing to do with that. It's one issue. And so make sure you keep the focus on that one issue, keep it objective, detached from your ego, and say, okay, how do I look at this experience? How do I make it better going forward? Let's get it. I'm gonna make sure when I come back to you guys next, this is gonna be ready. What did I get done this week? Well, probably can figure out. Worked through a lot of bugs. Worked through a lot of UI bugs. Things that just didn't look right. I didn't feel comfortable. There's a level of lack of polish that I'm willing to accept, and then there are things that fundamentally diminish the experience that I won't accept. If I'm putting it into somebody else's hands to test. And we had that second version. We had things that were unacceptable to me, that I needed to work through, that I'd never encountered before, but I needed to kind of make sure looked good enough to get to the next step. And then there were certain things that, just from a logic perspective, in terms of the actual logic of the app, just didn't work, the way I anticipated, and I needed to correct those. One thing to kind of give you an example, when you tap on your user's profile picture, on your own profile picture, you should be able to kind of change that profile picture. Well, I had it set up so that you could tap on anybody's profile picture and change theirs. Obviously, that's a huge problem. Not something you necessarily think about as you're going through. You set up the logic once, and you think it's going to work, but you overlook some of these things, especially the first time building something. And so understanding that, corrected that, worked through that. There were a lot of kind of similar things to that, stuff that I just overlooked. And working through those one by one. I'm not 100% of the way there, but definitely getting there. What's next? What am I going to work on this week? Same type of thing. Get through all these bugs. I don't pretend to know that or I won't pretend that I know everything that is wrong with the app or is kind of holding me back from actually launching, but I'm determined to make sure that I get through every last one of them, get it to a place where we can actually launch to other beta testers, and do that this week. So when I report back next week, you guys will see my celebration of working through those and actually getting to beta testing. As always, like, subscribe, comment. I'm doing this for the long run. I want to hear what you guys are working on. I want to hear, like I talked about today, if you have something that you're stumbling through or something that held you back, make that a temporary thing. Make that the setup for your comeback. I want to hear about it. Talk to you guys soon.